Hello, hello, possums. Yes, it is I, the conspicuous moo. And, sorry I've been away for a bit, but, I've been trying to get through A Realm Reborn, Final Fantasy, and, taking a little bit longer than I anticipated it would, for several reasons, but, we will go into all of those, so I think it's probably best to get cracking. So I was actually going to make this video once I'd fully completed the entire thing, but that is part of the problem with The Realm Reborn, and while it is a very, very good start to an MMO, there are definitely some issues with it, so we are going to go over some of those as well. So we'll start with the main scenario quest, the MSQ, or the main story quest, or whatever you like to call it. Whatever you do like to call it, it's long. It's longer than Mr. Long, who went to Longland and bought a long pair of long things that was then put into a long bag. What I'm trying to say is, it is a bit drawn out. Now, I'm all for stories and adventures and excitement and stuff, but, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but, you get a credits roll and you think, oh, okay, I'm all done. It's the beginning of the end of this section, I'm going to move on. But it isn't actually the beginning of the end. It is, in fact, as Winston Churchill would put it, the end of the beginning, and you have many, many more adventures afterwards. Now, I'm at 2.5 in the cycle patch at the moment, so I'm in the final stretch, but I just think that there's way too much going on. You're being pulled out into sort of side areas. It's not really a main scenario quest, as in it's, you've got a straight line, but you've got a whole bunch of branches going off in different directions, and I think I would have preferred a little bit more focus to it. If this all ties together beautifully at the end, then fine, but I don't really see how that's going to happen just yet. All of the characters are very, very good. I mean, I like the signs of the Seventh Dawn. I think, they're all very, very distinctive. Some of them are a little underused, perhaps, but that's possibly just a Realm Reborn thing. There's a certain Lalafell and Punchy person from Uldar who haven't really been all that involved in the story, but by the looks of things they do get a bigger role later on, so that's fine. I guess my concern with the length of the main story quest, or the main scenario quest, or the MSQ, is that it is so long it's going to put a lot of people off, and there's a lot going for this MMO, so if you don't like story, then I guess it isn't for you. Yeah, I get that point of view, but I also get the point of view that says, I just want to level and I want to experience all these exciting systems, and you are kind of locked into the main story quest, so, there's no real viable way around it. So, that's going to turn off a lot of people, and that can't possibly be a good thing. Anyway, crafting. Now, in a previous video, I think it was the last one, in fact, I said that I liked the crafting system, and my attitude on that absolutely hasn't changed whatsoever. I've leveled all of them up to 50 now, and I'm all completely done, and that is fine. And despite it all being obsolete content, I put it all on the market board with my 2 retainers, and I've made over 4 million gil in the process. So I know that's chump change to you more experienced Final Fantasy players, but to me it's like, oh, it's a comfortable start. I'll take it. However, there were a couple of things that just ground my gears a little bit, and I wouldn't be me if I didn't have a few little niggles and complaints about what I'm playing. So without further ado, first up, Shards. Now, if you've done any bit of crafting in Final Fantasy XIV, then you have encountered the fact that mostly everything that you create requires shards of some kind. Now, this isn't absolutely terrible, but it does seem to be a very, very limiting factor on how fast you can progress in the crafting. For example, I've currently got an Arcanist, and I'm thinking about Scholar, so I was going to make her some mulled tea, which is a level 47 recipe. And it has its, its normal stock of all these different ingredients, and that's no problem at all, but it also requires 6 fire shards and 5 water shards, and I wanted to make 50 units, which meant that I had to go out into the world and mine 300 fire shards and 250 water shards, and that's just boring. And every time I want to do something additional, then I'm going to have to go out and mine the shards as well. Now, I think there are enough reagents for making mulled tea as it is, and I don't know of anyone who has a glass of tea and goes, I do love those crunchy fire shards in it. So, in the course of my adventures of leveling everything up to 50, I have done an awful lot of logging and mining shards, and that's not a particularly interesting thing to do. You're already gathering an awful lot of different reagents, so it just seems like an extra thing that wasn't really necessary. So I hope that doesn't become a bigger problem later on. The other thing is Desynthesis. Now this is, quite a common MMO trope now. You had something like it in Battle for Azeroth when you had the Shredder thing. And ESO does it with the Deconstruct, and Desynthesis is the Final Fantasy version, which basically means that you can take items and blow them all apart and get some of the reagents back. It's kind of neat. And it's very, very useful for things like stacks of fish, because they've actually put a choice in there where you can just desynthesize a lot and you don't have to do them individually. Unfortunately, this does not stretch to things that you've crafted gear, armor, weapons, etc. Which does mean, over the course of your adventures, you're going to acquire a lot of extraneous gear that you're going to use and then want to discard. And you'll probably want to desynthesize them, but you won't be able to do them all in one hit like you can in ESO. You're going to have to do them one at a time, and it's a little bit excruciating. It feels like something that could be quite easily fixed. And if it's in a Realm Reborn, it's not likely that it's been fixed later on either. So, this is still an ongoing problem that really could be quite easily solved by just having, hold control down, choose all the different items that you want to synthesize, and then just let it tick along. It just seems a bit clunky. Questing in general. Right, so a Realm Reborn, was rebirthed in 2013, so it's not overly surprising that some of the questing elements in the base game are a little bit on the dated side. There's a lot of kill those, fetch those, explore over here, guided this person walking this way. And, I suppose that I expected, the fate system to take most of that off your hands. You just sort of show up to a fate and you kill all of the things and then you wander off again. But, it's been replicated in the quests. And the quests themselves aren't really necessary for leveling. Even on a server where you don't have the, the special 100% additional XP, and I'm not on one of those, on Tonbury, you still outstrip the main story quest. In terms of level by quite some distance, just by doing fates and dungeons and following the main story quest. And so, the quests themselves aren't really necessary. They don't give a huge amount of XP, and they are fairly unoriginal as well, so it seems a bit of a shame. The quests just seem not worth your time or energy. ESO, on the other hand, I think does this better. It does like mini adventures or mini stories within the quests, so entire zones have their own story quest lines. So, I think ESO has a better idea of how to do quests and how to handle them. So, I found the questing, so far at least, fairly disappointing. Classes and jobs, I have to say, it's so nice to have one character that can do everything. To have all of the professions. Now, you could do that in ESO anyway, but all of the classes as well. All of the jobs is fabulous because it gives me the opportunity to, I feel like a bit of tanking, I'll just swap to Paladin. I feel like a bit of healing, I'll swap to White Mage. And, that kind of flexibility and having all the different gear sets that are saved, and you can, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful for a single character kind of player like me. It really does fit in rather well. And so, finally somebody got it right in MMOs. Now, I have to admit that when it came to actual gameplay, it took me a little while to get used to the tab targeting again. I'm very much an exponent these days of the mouse over stuff. So, ESO has mouse over, and in World of Warcraft I had mouse over macros, so I could, point and fire. So going back to something where you have to tab target around, I'm getting better at it, but it certainly takes longer, and it seems like a regressive step for me personally. But I'm getting better. Now, as I comment on macros, yes, you can use them in the game, but they are generally not recommended for combat. And the main reason for this is that the cooldown for the macro to come around so you can use it again is slightly longer than the server input cooldown that they have in Final Fantasy XIV, which is basically a way of trying to combat lag by giving you the ability to queue up additional spells before it comes around. Which means that, even if you're spamming your macro, you're going to be slightly slower than everybody else. It's going to be suboptimal. It's going to be a DPS healing, tanking loss. So, yeah, I was disappointed too. But apparently they're really good for professions and crafting and stuff. So, I haven't actually tried that yet. So if you want to look for macros like that online, then by all means do. But they are generally not recommended for combat, at least not at the higher levels. As for the jobs themselves, I am still trying to find my person. I have a 52 Paladin, a 50 Monk, a 35 Ninja, I think the White Mage is 30, 29 Marauder, and a couple of other experimental ones. And currently I'm gone back to Arcanist. I had a difficult beginning with it, but I want to try something that's a little out of my comfort zone because, you know, tanking, yeah, second nature. DPS, not so good at that, but healer, I suck. So, you know, that would be interesting. And with Arcanist, you know, you become either a summoner, which is a DPS, or a scholar, which is a healer, and you level both up at the same time because they branch out from that one class. So I thought that was interesting, hence the mold tea and everything else. So that's what I'm going for at the moment. I'm going for something pet classes, which I hate pet classes, and healing, which I suck at, because, you know, why not? Expand your horizons a little. So, you know, as you can see from the footage, I'm in the process of leveling the Arcanist right now because bollocks to the main story quest, which I think at the moment has got me... Yeah, I'm at the stage where I have to revisit a few bosses that I've already defeated before, but this time on hard mode. Those of you who've done the main story quest will know what I'm talking about, and probably what that bottleneck is. Anyway, it does seem like it's all a bit Debbie Downer on Final Fantasy XIV, but it really isn't, you know. It's so much easier to mention the bad things than the good, but there are a lot of fabulous things, and I'm still very much enjoying myself. I'm getting into my free company, we're having a lot of fun, I'm doing the grand company seals, it's just, I'm all over the place, and I'm enjoying the vast majority of it. But, you know, you've got to be realistic as well, and say that the Realm Reborn does have a few of these little teething issues. Some of them might be specific to a Realm Reborn, some of the other ones, like the Desynthesis stuff, speaks to a larger problem within the game itself that could be fairly easily fixed, I feel, anyway. And as I said before, you know, the main story quest, the MSQ, the main scenario quest, whatever you prefer to call it, is going to be a deal breaker for some new players, which it seems to be a shame because there's so much more around the main story quest, which is so much more enjoyable, but because of its kind of essential nature, you know, many people will not get to Heaven's Ward, which I think is a shame. So I don't know what could be done at this point. Maybe trim it out or give the ability to skip, you know, non-essential threads of the main story. Because at the moment I'm not convinced all of these threads are going to come together. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm going to toddle off now. I've got some shopping to do. It's very cold here as well, but I guess it is winter. Merry Christmas to all of you who celebrate Christmas 4 months before everybody else does. And I will be back relatively soon. But until then, I am the conspicuous Moo, and a very, very good afternoon to you.